brings with it varied monetization opportunities across several different industry verticals. But to uncover the India-specific use cases and the players in our 5G ecosystem that stand to benefit, we're joined by a panel of industry luminaries next. And I ask that they please join me on stage as I announce their name. First off, to help guide us through the conversation, we have with us analyst with Analysis Mason, Mark Colville. If you could please take your seat on stage, sir, towards the center. Can we have a round of applause for Mark, please? And we are continuing to review and monitor all of your social media posts. So please reach out to us if you haven't already. As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 lucky winners that we're going to announce at the close of this forum. And they're going to go home with surprise gifts. So it's worth reaching out to us with the hashtag 5G Congress if you haven't already. Now, joining Mark, we have our distinguished domain experts. Please join me in welcoming the CEO of Unlimit, Jürgen Hayes. Is Jürgen with us? Thank you, sir. Carrying on, the VP and the head of IoT at Bharti Airtel, Sucheta Mahapatra. Sucheta has already joined us. The IT head at HCL Healthcare, Kapil Mehrotra. All right. President of Hexagon India, Pramod Kaushik, the head of strategy, special initiatives, mergers and acquisitions, and mega deals at L&T Smart World and Communications, Purushottam Kaushik, Chief Strategy Officer of MNEX Info Technologies, Virang Mankad, and the business head of the mobility division at Panasonic India, Pankaj Rana. Our panel, as you can see, is very prompt. They're on stage. They're ready to go. So with that, Mark, please take it away.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the Economic Times for inviting me here for what's been a fantastic conference so far. I think the fact that we've still got so many faces in the audience at this stage in the day, particularly with the fact that I'm told there's a sporting event of some significance starting not too far from now, says a lot about the level of interest in 5G in this country and amongst the people that we've gathered here today. I'd like to run this session by first providing a brief overview and setting the scene myself, before I'll then turn over to each of the panelists in turn to provide their perspective on some of the issues identified in the panel description. We'll then have a few questions and discussion amongst ourselves, and then I'll finally, if we have time, open up to the audience for questions. So, as some of you are already aware, my name is Mark Colville. I'm part of Analysis Mason, working along with Rohan, who moderated the last panel. I've come over from my office in Cambridge in the UK for this panel. And back there, my role is to work primarily on spectrum valuation and auction design. So I've had a lot of input around the world on how to design and run 5G auctions and how operators are able to bid in those auctions. And so I was listening with quite a lot of interest to the panels and some of the discussion earlier about how things might proceed in that way in India. I think what we did establish earlier is that enhanced mobile broadband is certainly part of the 5G proposition. It's the continuation, if you like, of what we've seen as mobile services thus far in the world. And there is an opportunity there for operators, but at the same time, there's a huge cost in rolling out 5G networks. We had a figure of $100 billion put forward earlier, and whilst perhaps not all of that is incremental to 5G, some of it might have occurred anyway were we to just be expanding capacity of existing networks, there's nonetheless a large portion of cost associated with 5G, spectrum fees, but also rollout costs and various other aspects. And actually, as I came from the airport here, I was talking to my taxi driver about this, and he understandably first asked me what 5G was, but after explaining that, his immediate reaction, and you might argue quite insightfully, said, oh, so does this mean that the costs are going to go up for buying mobile data? I said, well, I don't think that's likely, because around the world we don't generally see that mobile operators are able to sustainably raise their prices once new technologies are rolled out and investment occurs. But that conclusion kind of leads us to a bit of a revenue gap, right? We understand that there's a cost to rolling out 5G. We understand that there will be some revenue associated with enhanced mobile broadband services, but we need something else to help fill it. And IoT, which is the subject of this panel discussion, is one such candidate. And that, to me, raises three important questions, which we'll discuss as part of this panel. Firstly, how large and how real do we think the IoT opportunity is in revenue terms? Secondly, do we think that this revenue opportunity accrues to telcos in whole or in part? The title of this session being about making telcos smile. If there is a revenue opportunity here, is it the telcos that are smiling, or is it them that are partially smiling and partially others in associated industries? And thirdly, to what extent is this IoT revenue opportunity associated with 5G? There are various technological approaches to providing IoT. Many of them are already being implemented, and we'll hear about that. 5G can help enable different aspects of network service, which can help to help telcos and others to offer new services. But what proportion of the total do those services represent? How reliant are we on 5G for IoT to succeed? So, without me taking up more of the panel time, what I'd like to do, as I mentioned before, is a bit of a round robin here, where I ask each of the panelists in turn to describe their perspective on IoT, the revenue opportunity that it presents, and issues that they see. I think we'll do this moving from left to right as I look, right to left as you look. So if we could come first to Pramod.
I think we can see at many places, especially in the industry, that the 5G would really make an impact, because out of the 4 transformational technologies or the parameters which are important, speed is one of it. As 5G provides a massive speed difference, the reliability, the latency, and in true sense, making a peer-to-peer communication very reliable and robust in terms of security of the data. I think there are opportunities between telcos and I would say the other technology providers in various areas, especially like mining, manufacturing, to see that they can collaborate together, have the robust communication solutions deployed at the customer place. My own brief about this is that, only telcos, if they want to do it alone, it will be too massive for them to take it upon themselves. But the fact of the matter is, if they tie up with the service providers, the technology providers, and the solution providers, it will make a good game for each one, them to really provide some good solutions to the customers, and opportunity to actually not only get into just providing the network, it's also about the analytics, the different service models which they can deploy together, because one brings the competency on the technology side, one brings on the network side, but together the new service models can be deployed in revenue generation opportunities. So especially Industry 4.0 can be one big. Mining, massive, especially in this country, which is opening up to the private sector, also throws up good opportunities. But my take is that it's together, not alone.
Okay, thank you, Pramod. Kapil, if you could provide us with the healthcare perspective.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Kapil, and my perspective is healthcare is a very big industry, wherein you need very good bandwidth. I'm giving you some of the statistics. Probably you can correlate with that. Currently, if you see, like 35% people are living in a urban area, and 65 people are living in the rural area. And out of 35 people, if you see, like 60% people are using internet regularly. And if you look at the stat of a rural area, wherein like 65% people using 52% internet regularly. And if you see, like if 65% people living in a rural area and they need healthcare services, so we think from the remote medication perspective, we can basically plan something wherein like one bus, one doctor, nurses can go there, and remotely they can transfer data over the network, and we can basically look at here all the statistics and the problems, and we can address those. That will save a lot of money, that will save a lot of effort, which is in today's era, over on the 3G and 4G, like which is not feasible that much because of the connectivity issues. Other perspective is because a lot of IoT devices are coming now these days, wherein if person is going for the, let's say, a procedure, a cardiac procedure, wherein like minimum 7 days he has to basically get admitted in the hospital. If I want to give an experience, I want to basically give a better network for that perspective, so I can release him on a medical ground to the patient in 2 days' time, and I can put a device which can basically continuous monitor of his health conditions. He can go to home happily, and doctor can basically watch out his vitals everyday basis. And doctor can set the threshold in case if any vital goes wrong, so he will get notified immediately. For such kind of robust infrastructure, you need 5G, because 5G is providing a lot of things, speed, agility, robustness, and security as well, because IoT devices are very vulnerable. So security is another factor which we have to factor in this. So these 2 points which I wanted to highlight, and I want to talk more about this.
Thank you very much. If we could come to Sucheta next to give us the mobile operator perspective.
Sure. I just wanted to step back for 1 second and think about why all of us here who belong to the IoT world are so excited about 5G. We've been hearing since morning about a lot of the benefits of 5G. But what does it mean really in the IoT world? And we began to speak about it a little bit right now. If you think about the faster data speeds, we all know what it means. Sure, we can download an HD movie in seconds, of course. But what does it mean in the IoT world? In the IoT world, we are in the business of controlling devices. We can now control devices that require extremely high network strength. We can control devices that require real-time decision-making, that are geographically spread out, mines, for instance. Assets that are spread out, for example, in hazardous locations like mines. We can control them in real time. That, to me, is one of the sort of direct implications of having a high-speed 5G networks. 5G enables a device density that was not seen before. We could have almost 10x more devices latch on with almost roughly similar network infrastructure if we had 5G. That means every light here could be a smart light. Pervasive IoT networks without crashing what we know as the mobility networks today. Latency, of course, connected cars will become a reality. Cars, buses, trucks, V2V communication, vehicle-to-vehicle communication. Much has been spoken about connected cars. If you think about the power saving, not just 5G, but IoT-ready network technologies, enable a power saving that has not been seen before. A sensor that is stuck on a shipping container, for instance, might need to go without charging for 7 years. And that's the kind of power saving that we have to solve for in the IoT world, which is enabled by some of these IoT-specific network technologies, whether it is LPWAN, 5G, and so on. I think I just wanted to take a moment to sort of therefore step back and see what sort of 5G means for us in the IoT world. We can talk later about more specific vertical use cases.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sucheta. Coming next to Jürgen, who's the CEO of Unlimit, Reliance Group's IoT division.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, first of all, really great to be here. I believe you can talk a lot about 5G, latency, the bandwidth and all the features. You know it better than all of us. I believe what we have to do, I thought a lot when I got the invitation, when 5G is ready in India, that means we're talking in 3, 4, 5 years. And what are the use cases in 3, 4, 5 years? And Unlimited is an organization that has implemented IoT services from connectivity up to the end-to-end services the last 2 years. And I see a huge growth. There's zero discussion. Wherever you're looking for, especially in the enterprise sector, everybody is implementing IoT services from the beginning. And one of the strengths I see is coming up from the automotive industry. It's not only the OEM, it's also all the dealers, and everybody is really now implementing. 1 year before, they've thought about 2G. Now everybody, they have swapped to 4G and already talking about 5G. That means when we are implementing 5G, 5G will be ready in the next years, we have to start about how to do it now, because whatever we are implementing now in IoT services, it has to be ready for 5G in the future. We have to think about how to migrate, because we cannot reinvest and reinvest and reinvest. And it's not only the network, it's also the devices, you know. The costs are on the devices. If you wanted to implement IoT services, the costs are there. It's not in the connectivity and any other things. And I personally believe there's no discussion. If it's coming, it is coming crystal clear. It's a bandwidth in the automotive, the Wi-Fi, streaming services. The mass market is the consumer market, smartphones. People like it. This is a clear value for a customer if you have bandwidth. My kids, I can see it. Everybody likes bandwidth. At home, whatever could be off. When the Wi-Fi doesn't work, somebody's calling me. The rest, never somebody calls me, but only when the Wi-Fi doesn't work. It's the same will happen with 5G. One part I see in 5G is the first time, and there's a reason why I believe it's strength for the enterprise market. With 5G, you have quality of service on the network, especially for enterprise customer. It's a huge advantage. It's not best effort. It's the first time that you really can offer peaks. You can sign SLAs that you can really use peak bandwidth, the quality of service, security elements, all these things which are coming up. It's a huge advantage for the enterprise market. And coming to your question, what is the value for a telco? It's much more than the pure network. When you're implementing IoT services, you need VPNs. We are collecting millions of data or tons of data in the future. As you know, in the next years, we are talking about around about in the world 27 million new data points per day. New data points per day. That means we have to talk about storage, we have to talk about AI services and all these services, hosting services in the back, which all the telcos at the end of the day have. So that means it's much more than the pure 5G. With the 5G, we are adding many more things also for the telco market. It never will ramp up to 50–60%, but I personally believe it will be more than today. And the collaboration is also ramping up. You can see it much more that all of them are working close together with different partners like we are doing it, because you have to offer to the customer an end-to-end services as simple as possible. For this, you need the right telco, you need the right partners, which are normally for an end-to-end services, 5 to 6 different partners you need. And this ecosystem wasn't the discussion, one was the discussion before I've heard this, we have to create now. Who have to work together to invest in developers and startups so that the ecosystem is ramping step by step up so that we can create the right ecosystem, especially for the enterprise sector.
Thank you. Some very interesting points there on the timing, the technologies, and other aspects that we'll certainly come back to after we finish going down the line. So if I could come next to Purushottam to give us the smart cities perspective.
Yeah, I'm representing an organization, L&T, which is right now almost doing 60–70% of the smart cities program. But I also had the opportunity of working earlier within consulting, working with various city governments and state governments in this space, as well as an OEM for 15 years across Cisco. So I've come from a technology consulting and now system integration space. I would like to again take a step back, and when we say how do you make telcos or the 5G ecosystem partners smile? There are two ways of looking at it. Where is the revenue side and how do you optimize the cost side? Now, before I go to the revenue side, the bigger issue that we have with regard to 5G is that how do you can solve the technology challenges. Like you will have the best of the technology, you can still solve the spectrum issues, which is a separate subject altogether. But where is the infrastructure to deploy 5G? For deploying 5G, even if you pick up top 50 to 100 cities, just take a 1 square kilometer area, and I'm just doing a sampling method. For 1 square kilometer area, you need 24 towers, or we can say small poles, wherever the small cells will be deployed. You need 8 kilometers of optical root kilometers of fiber. Now, to do 8 kilometers of root kilometer optical fiber in a square kilometer area and 24 towers, you will need to do 10x of what you have right now. To do 10x of what you have right now, the kind of problems which are happening in cities to take permissions right away and solve these issues is a massive, massive task. And there are other programs which are being run separately under smart cities mission. So few of the cities deploying thousands of cameras, thousands of sensors, and subsequently when Wi-Fi hotspots and everything. Right now, many of the cities are deploying separate fiber networks and separate optical electronics network. Maybe some part of it is riding over telco, but they are doing their own private networks because the existing networks don't even support. There's hardly any fiber reach to those cameras. That's the reality on the ground. Now, is there a way that we can solve these infra problems? Is a bigger issue. We may call that technology is ready, spectrum is ready in next 3 years, but where is the infra? So that's one thing which I have been working with the various state governments and cities to put up a framework of sharing, creating shared infrastructure, where you can have shared ducts and shared poles and towers, which could be used by all the telcos to deploy small cells, and then also can be leveraged for deploying smart cities. That's the one thing which need to be put in place, which for sure I can tell you that if you look at the OPEX cost of any telco to deploy a 5G and the CAPEX cost which is required going to be deployed, will certainly make them smile, because that's one of the biggest issue which as moving ahead from the spectrum and the technology part of it. The other thing on the revenue side, for sure I can tell you that the kind of applications like I'm representing smart cities, and 65% of the GDP as we believe is going to be generated through the cities. There are maybe 40 applications which I can see, and any smart city project today, I have to shell out almost like 15 to 17% of any project towards connectivity only, which is the telco part of bandwidth. Now, this is only a very, very initial part of it. If you multiply the number of cameras and the sensors moving ahead in the smart city program, because this is right now only a pilot which is being done, can you imagine the kind of revenue which will get generated for any of the telcos moving forward? It's a huge opportunity for all of us, where parking, lighting, transport, buses, everything has to get connected. And the kind of speed of data, the kind of options for applications, cloud, for the whole ecosystem, it is a huge opportunity. And that's where we need to focus on. For sure, there is an opportunity, just need to solve some of the initial teething troubles to make really everybody smile, not just telcos.
Thank you very much. Coming next to Pankaj from Panasonic to give us a perspective on smart cities, but also connected home devices and NB-IoT, I believe.
Yeah. So, good evening, everyone. I am Pankaj from Panasonic. So, my perspective on with the 5G, how IoT will play a major role and how it will become a revenue driver, not only for the telcos, but for all the enterprises like us, Panasonic, L&T, or the Hexagon or other friends over here. So most of the things are already explained, my friends over here, and Airtel friend has already explained the lot of use cases what IoT can deliver and what IoT will deliver with the help of 5G. But I'll carry on from my friend from L&T said that India is a very unique country where we all have to solve the infrastructure and executional issues first. Because what usually we do in any type of technology, we follow the Western world, or we follow the whosoever is the leader in that area, and then start implementing, and government start pushing those things into the system. Whereas most of my friends will agree, do you really experience 4G speed in India? And do we really have call drops issue which is solved? So what friend from L&T was saying, that infra we have to solve first. Whereas there is no doubt about, from our perspective, Panasonic perspective, that IoT will bring a lot of 5G with IoT will bring a lot of opportunity in the area of smart cities, in the areas of connected homes, in the areas of maybe healthcare, in the areas of education or any such things. So this will bring a lot of revenue opportunity, but these revenue opportunities must be streamlined and must be done in a way so that we all have a sustainable growth and sustainable profitability with new technologies moving into this, so that we don't have to change the infra at everywhere. So as a friend from L&T was sharing that various cities, they are working as a smart city project. Everyone has their own network, own fiber network or own way of managing things. But how this whole cost sharing and all these mechanism will happen, all these things we have to share. Of course, any new technology or any new area will bring a lot of opportunities and a lot of revenue earning platforms for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj. And coming finally to Virang from MNEX.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. Good evening, everyone. I represent an organization called MNEX, which is specifically into IoT domain. And we specialize on IoT as a technology. As a technology company, what challenges we face? So we have solutions around, let's say, smart lighting, smart parking, smart waste management, where in every smart city opportunities, these use cases are required. And we are deploying thousands of sensors across the country today. The major challenge today what we face is basically is to have the reliable way of communication from sensor to acquire the data which can be thrown onto the cloud for the BI layer to process the data for creating some meaningful picture out of that. So data acquisition from sensor is a very tricky activity. What we are facing challenge today is basically have a reliable way of communicating back. So what happens is technologies, companies like us whose core forte is basically into IoT application development. Our core forte is not to create a telco infrastructure. So what we end up doing is basically whatever available options that we have today from the market like LoRa, we have to create a private communication network. We have to work on LoRa-based gateways or I mean, like, you know, there are options like Sigfox who are creating their own private networks and they are offering them this service on a subscription basis. However, today we don't have many options available where I can have secured way of acquiring data, okay, and in a reliable way, on a timely manner, I can put that data on a cloud for analysis. Be it parking, be it smart bins, or be it street lights, okay. So that is the biggest challenge what we face. I think moving forward, 5G framework or NB-IoT kind of communication mode with a lower cost or lower power requirement at a sensor level would be able to provide us an opportunity to defocus on communication network and continue focusing on our core forte. Okay, so that was my first point. So maybe telco can step forward and look for helping IoT use cases deployments by creating a last mile connectivity infrastructure which is of telco grade with a quality of service. That is first. Second, my couple of use cases on IoT are fostering rural economies. Okay, for an example, if I'm talking about agriculture, we use remote sensing and GIS for capturing the crop health monitoring data. Okay, and we basically give the crop yield estimation to the government in terms of how the crop life cycle has been progressing. Okay, now this actually impacts agriculture as one of the major economy of this country, linked with irrigation and water management data. Okay, now when I'm talking about linking irrigation, downstream and upstream water management and agriculture, maybe for precision farming or for crop life cycle management, basically what I require is data acquisition again. Okay, so now biggest challenge would be how do I have the massive rollout of such kind of use cases in the rural areas where I am struggling to get the connectivity. Maybe after BharatNet flagship project, we may be able to extend the 5G capabilities to the rural areas, provided it makes sense for telcos to create a business case. Then it could be a very good opportunity for both IoT deployments as well as for telcos to go explore new avenues for earning revenue in the rural areas.
Thank you. And thank you all for your contributions. I wonder if we might start the questions by picking up on that last point, and this is relevant to what was mentioned earlier as well about healthcare, rural versus urban. So where we think of IoT applications that require 5G, and we're saying that one of the reasons they require 5G might be because of the high throughput requirements, and at the same time we're saying that these opportunities arise in rural areas. Now, 5G networks have the potential, of course, to be much faster and provide higher throughput than previous generations, but 5G networks don't look the same or won't look the same in urban areas and rural areas. In urban areas, we might expect much denser cells, much larger amounts of spectrum per cell. In rural areas, we might be more reliant on, for example, the 700 megahertz to provide a service, but not to have that supplemented by other higher frequency bands that have worse coverage. So my question to various members of the panel really is, how do we square this circle? If we're trying to provide high throughput applications in rural areas where it's even more costly to deploy, from a mobile operator's perspective, do we see that happening? And if so, how are we going to be able to fund it?
So Mark, I'll shy away from answering a specific network coverage planning type question. It's not what I do for a living. But you're right. I think there will be some gradation as the networks roll out when they do by all telcos. And this is this is not specific to India. This is how it happens worldwide. This is how it happened for 4G, right? There'll be some gradation. There'll be some sort of glide path to getting to ubiquitous coverage whenever, new technology comes. That said, and I think Pramod said it well, IoT is, it's an ecosystem. We will all have to creatively rethink how we create sustainable revenue and profit pools in this industry. The government and industry will have to partner very, very closely. We'll have to share infrastructure. We'll have to share network infrastructure, whether it's active, passive, fiber, whatever that may be. We'll have to foster entrepreneurship and innovation at a scale that we never have done before. We'll have to rethink our business model specifically, even as telcos. We'll have to, create ways and means that all of us have this as a sustainable revenue model as opposed to trying to skim the market for a little bit. And I think there is no silver bullet answer to how one would, whether a telco would make money and whether we would extend rural coverage right away. I think the answer lies in all of us coming together, and forums like this one are a great opportunity. Coming together to build out an IoT ecosystem that benefits all of us and truly helps solve real-world problems. Whether it is, like we said, rural health, whether it's rural agriculture, whether it's urban mobility. Real-world problems can be solved by disruptive technologies like this one. It needs all of us to come together.
Picking up now on one of the points made by Jürgen, there's a timing issue here. So we've identified that there are some use cases and there are likely revenue opportunities that sit with them, and these opportunities are arising already. But 5G networks aren't ready for them at this stage. There are other technology options, and we can deploy solutions in those options, but how do we then migrate those to 5G, or do we need to? Jürgen, do you have a further perspective?
It's not easy to give the right answer. First of all, I personally believe you need an open architecture itself. That means on the telco side, whoever is offering all these different services, that means you need horizontal layer with open APIs, as open as possible, that everybody can plug in their services, that you're ready for the future and never create silos on technology side. I believe this is one core element. Second part we have to think about is to start now a deep discussion with the device players, with the Qualcomms, with the Sierra Wireless, all the players who are on the market. What is their view on 4G, 5G, 2G modules? Which one will come up first, second, third? So that we can really start to implement a device which we can upgrade over the air in any form, so which is ready for, I would say, something like this. Obviously, this is one of the core elements, because the cost is coming from there, not on the platform. The platform side, you really centralize, or in the cloud, you can update most of the time the software act. But if you have 100,000 of devices in the field and you have to swap the hardware, this is the most critical one. I believe here we really have to think about a business model to go ahead in this way. Because again, we are starting now implementing massive 4G in automotive, in Industry 4.0, and narrowband technology is coming up, massive, which a total different business model. Nobody's really knowing how to make money in narrowband. It's a tricky one. But I believe it's really starting with the hard and software players now and learning from them so that we can implement the right things now. And it works in the same way as explained before with an open architecture at the end of the day. But it's a journey. It's a journey.
Thank you. Okay, final question from me. Again, it was mentioned in a couple of opening remarks that telcos may need to move beyond providing just the connectivity in order to realize a larger portion of this revenue opportunity. I think some work we've done previously has estimated that the connectivity may only form 10 to 20% of the total revenue opportunity here. So that being the case, does anyone have a view on how best telcos might go about doing that? Pramod?
There won't be any straight answer as such because telcos, the core competence is on the network. And they today sell the data, they sell the voice, and all of a sudden we're asking them to come and cooperate and collaborate and make an ecosystem which is going to be looking at solving some of the toughest challenges which this country is facing. So I would say again, it's a journey, it's a mindset change, and they should know what's in it for them before they graduate into that journey. No straight answer, but someone will have to take a call because alone, I don't think so anyone can succeed. But by collaborating and making an, I would say, ecosystem in which they are part of it, I think everyone can survive.
Maybe I can add a few things. So I have the opportunity of at least looking at many of the telcos inside out while we were working. So today I think all the 3 major telcos that we have in the country, all of them have separate division within the larger telco perspective of setting up more like IoT business as well as technology arm. And they are working and trying to create as many industry solutions towards it. Now, whether they are ready with the go-to market, I don't think as of now they are ready because they are right now just doing a bit of IoT lab, solution testing, validation with few OEMs, making some announcements, but in a real world, they're not jumping in. But for sure, I know that like whether it's Vodafone or whether it's Bharti or whether it's Jio, the kind of plans that I go in and the intent to even go beyond, like all of them have their own data centers and their cloud services on, they're building up platforms, they're having a huge OEM stack as well as solution stacks, they have startup incubation centers, so they are getting there. I would say they have all the intent, but maybe as we go ahead, they will certainly like to leverage the investments which they have and the go-to market and the reach to capture as much as possible to this market.
Yeah, this is what I think friend from Airtel can answer this question better, but as said that they have infrastructure for everything for data, voice. Suddenly from 4G and 5G, they have to become more of a digital enterprise where they have to work on more of a content, whether they own content, whether they do the partnerships. So whole change of business modeling is happening for the operators. As we heard maybe a couple of months back, like Airtel is planning to collaborate with Verizon into the IoT space, into digital space. So yes, there are a lot of opportunities for telcos to enter into this space, but in my opinion, how sustainable and how profitable those avenues will be, that they have to measure, because at this moment, a lot of OTT players are taking up revenues from them or maybe the profitability from them. So it's a balanced mix which telcos have to play in time to come, and all the best to them. We all are with them. Thank you.
Just to add in, this is the, yeah, you take it.
A very tiny twist to what Puru already said. I think we know and we can quite ace the connectivity game. We've been there, done that. We'll do more of that. We'll do it well. I promise you telco-grade IoT networks. But yes, we are seriously moving up the value chain. And I can say that on behalf of all our big telcos, we are moving up the value chain.
Just to add in this, telcos are basically giving a lot of services, value-added services, like they are offering clouds now. Most of the telcos, they are offering cloud, storage, IPs. Each and every IoT device needs a public IP. From where you will get it? From the telcos. Because they will give you IP, then you can access it remotely. Other thing is Airtel Money. Now these days, Paytm kind of things is everywhere. So all the telecom companies, they are coming into the application. They are providing the transactional facilities, financial transaction facilities. So most of the telcos, in my views, they are coming with the applications, and they are providing the unique APIs, which you can directly connect as a service. That's it.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm aware that I promised that I would open this up to the floor for questions. However, the red Time's Up screen has been flashing at me for the last few minutes. And knowing that I'm competing with other interests of cocktails and potentially cricket, it's probably best that we draw this to a close at this point. So my apologies for that. If anyone does have questions, I'm sure that you can catch up with. Okay, looks like we have one question here, and then.
Yeah. Yes. As I earlier session, I have mentioned about my Suruksha Bharat Abhiyan, and we want to deploy 3 to 5 million IoT camera where SIM card can be inserted, and we have designed IoT platform. I meet the AIB, World Bank, Islamic Bank, and other private investors. They are ready to bring the 30, 40,000 crore of money to invest. So I have already created markets. I want to know, like even my production capacity is 10,000 units per day. But as here in this panel, every stakeholder is there. They have their own runway, like telecom service providers, Panasonic, who can also manufacture camera if these demands are there. So how I can fast implement my project, because governments, I meet the 12 ministries, 40 member of parliament to take off this project before next general election, actually. So how this panel, can help to implement faster this project. And so we, India, we get the, advantage to reach.
I can try to explain this. At the end, what you need really sounds a little bit simple, how to make it happen. You need the right partner ecosystem, because it's not only you and one of them.
Yeah, here the infrastructure provider are there. Here the service provider are there, actually. Yeah. So how, as a value chain, you connect and we can start to implementation something.
Yeah.
Can I add in this? Yes. Sorry.
At the end, as explained before, you need 5, 6, 7 partners. We have already selected. We have 350 partners, certified partners in the back, and then sit around and really make it happen with the best coverage. Could come from Airtel, whoever is the best coverage. And I don't know, technology-wise, it is possible. It's much more now how to execute it. And this is only when all the stakeholders are sitting together. This is because somebody has to play the symphony of IoT. And this is the way how to go ahead. It never works when you're talking to only him and only her and only him.
Experienced people are there, because I need the experienced supply chain, how build our backend, Yeah,
I believe that's a part we are doing, and I'm sure some others are also doing it in their areas, and then to go ahead.
So this is Smile, is our, topic of the Smile to the, telecoms, this opportunity. Just I thrown it to this patient. Thank you.
Yeah, just to answer you, see, it's a big project that you are talking for.
Yes.
So you need first of all, right governance.
Yes.
And single owner.
Okay.
If you don't have single owner, you cannot roll out this project.
Okay.
Right? Because your limitation is fast rollout.
Yes.
Right? So first of all, you have governance, then the owner. Ownership has to be clearly defined.
Okay.
If there are 3 partners are involved, if 5 telecom industries are involved, so role has to be very clear. Who's going to do what?
Okay.
And then you have to look the available infrastructure. Does available infrastructure is going to support what application you are making, or it's required change? It's required procurement. If it is required procurement, then delay will happen.
Okay.
So whatever at this moment can be gelled with the current infrastructure can basically go out. Otherwise, it will be delayed. So 3 things, these 3 things are the key things which you have to basically keep in your mind, rolling out this kind of big framework.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being an attentive audience, and I'd like it if you could please join me in thanking our panelists.